Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov chess channel and welcome to the Grand Chess Tour finals in 2019 in London. So we have now the semi-finals of this very nice tournament because this Grand Chess Tour is going on through the whole year, and in the semi-finals we have Magnus Carlsen, Maxime Vachier Lagrave, Liren and Levon Aronian that are battling for the throne. And if I go back through the whole 2019, I think these players are deserved to be here. They're played really the best chess. I remember Maxime Vachier Lagrave crushing Magnus Carlsen in many blitz games and also in some rapid games. Liren also played very good games against Magnus, and also Levon Aronian played also very good rapid and blitz games. So these players have won at least one tournament in this year and really deserve to be here in the semifinals. Today I wanted to show you a great game played by Magnus Carlsen against Maxime Vachier Lagrave from the semifinals. We have the Najdorf defense, and basically there is always one problem. From White's perspective, when you face the Sicilian, there is this problem of the pawn central control. When we come to this particular moment, I'll show you what's all about. It's really a huge strategical problem, sort of. Of course, you have some compensations for White. You have the pawn, the piece activity, but this pawn central control will have a very important role here in this particular game. So let's see the game. E4 here played by Magnus. We have c5, knight on f3, d6. The preparation we can still transpose into a dragon Sicilian defense, or into a chevening system, or in the Najdorf with a6. So after d4 we have c takes d4, knight takes on d4, and now knight on f6 attacking the e4 pawn, and now knight on c3. Here I want to stop for a little bit, because here I wanted to point you out this very important center, which is the common center in Sicilians, and White has of course the better piece. White has this very nice centralized knight. It can always be supported by the bishop on e3, have this very nice centralization of pieces here, but there is this pawn central control, because if we evaluate the position from a pawn central control, we want to have always more pawns than your opponent in the center. So from Black's perspective, you see this is perfectly fine. We have the possibility to play maybe something like e6 and d5, crack the position, creating pawn breakthrough here in the center. And we always evaluate this pawn central control, because when you play something like e6, then you see these four squares in the center are restricted, and basically no piece can jump into this particular area of the board. On the other hand, you see White has only one pawn, so this strategical element will have a huge impact here in this particular position, because still it's of course main theory, not no one has made any mistakes, but I just wanted to show you how important it is to have this centralized pawn, because White will rely in this particular game on his piece activity and on his piece centralization. On the other hand, Black will rely simply on his pawn central control. These balances in game. Of course, these are also some compensation, sort of. You cannot have them all. You cannot have also good piece activity or also this pawn central control, because in this particular lines, Black has also the possibility to create a very dangerous attack on the c-file. So that are this, as I said, main strategical elements. But here a6 was played, and now we have the Najdorf, and Magnus played bishop on g5. Here we have e6, and now f3, and this f3 is a slight inaccuracy by Magnus. If you play this f3 move, I think it's of course a possible line. It was played even in top grandmaster level, but there is this problem on dark squares, and you can get kicked away with the bishop. With move h6, you have to play your bishop on e3. But I think with f3 you have lost sort of a tempo, because after queen on d2 and bishop on e3, the main idea for White is to push pawns g4, h4, h5, and wait Black to castle into your attack. So after bishop on g5 here, it leaves you the opportunity for Black to immediately create h6. Here bishop on e3, and now we have b5. Now Magnus played a3, which is a very important prophylactic move, not allowing here this b4 move, because in this game it's most likely that White will castle on queen side after queen on d2, and then castle here on the queen side, which is the main line in this opposite-sided attack games in Sicilians, black will of course try to castle here on the king side, or even stay with the king in the center. In this particular game, white needs this move a3 in order to stop here black's attack with this pawn minority, sort of. We create here this pawn minority attack with a6 b5 with the preparation to crack the position with b4. So in the game, knight from b to d7 was played by Maxime Vachier Lagrave, and now we have queen on d2 by Magnus, bishop on b7, and now castling here by Carlsen. Here h5, and that's what I meant. Here I think, although black hasn't castled so far, I think you can play immediately here d5, because you have this pawn central control. As I said, after e takes d5, we can simply take with our knight, knight takes d, and now bishop takes on d5. Okay, there are now several options for white to continue to proceed, maybe even something like g4, h4, but this bishop is very powerful. We have even still possibility to play rook on c8, and that's why I pointed you out this pawn central control, because we have the flexibility in the game. We can roll the pawns here and really try a pawn breakthrough even with the king in the center, because we have a perfect attack here against this d5 square. So this would be a nice positional move, and also a simplification in black's position. So in the game, h5 was played by Maxime Vachier Lagrave. This is a very interesting move, because it prevents this g4 immediately, and because of this pawn central control, which I showed you of the pawns, it's really hard for white to crack the position in the center. So black can stay with the king a little bit in the center, at least now for a while, because the bishop is guarding here the d6. Nothing can happen. We cannot attack this d6 with no minor piece like with the knight. It would be too much of sacrificing pieces if you try something like knight on b5 here in order just to get this d6 pawn. So it wouldn't be a good idea. Here h5, very interesting move, because you have played f3, and it's hard for white to attack this pawn with bishop on e2 and similar ideas. So that's why h5 blocks a little bit white's attack. White would love now to play something like g4, and then after that g5, but this h5 is a great defensive move, still with possibility to stay even with the king in the center, because as I said, we have the pawn central control. Nothing can happen here in the center for black. So king on b1, bishop on e7. You see we have a really compact position in front of black's king, not good defensive setup with the queen, with the bishop, with the two knights, and basically from black's perspective, we're relying on this semi-open c-file, and I'm not sure how to proceed here for white, because you have to play really some improvements like g3, then maybe f4, or g3 h3, then after that something like g4, because there is one strategical problem if you try h3 immediately to crack the position here and try g5, because then you get h4, and this would be a very nice blocking system here with the support of the rook. Then after that, we can even try maybe support this pawn even more with the bishop and the queen, so nothing can attack this pawn. If you try g3, then of course would take, then white is left with this isolated pawn situation. So that's why this h4 would be sort of a blocking system here on the king side, and nothing can happen. Even in the center, nothing can happen. Here on the king side also nothing can happen. So basically this game would be sort of a one-way ticket. Only we would play on the queen side, where Magnus has castled, and this would be a very dangerous position here for white. So after bishop on e7, Magnus plays a very interesting idea, queen on e1. Maybe queen on f2 is better here, at least staying on this very important diagonal, but probably Magnus tried a very nice defensive setup, I think, because he realized that he has lost a little bit the battle in the center. He wants to stay with the queen on the first rank, but then improve the rook on the second rank, because if we have the queen on the second rank or an f2, then the queen has to be sort of a defensive piece on the second rank. You'll see the problems about the second rank in this game also for Magnus Carlsen. So Maxime Vachier Lagrave will play very actively in the game. Here in the game, of course, rook on c8. You see how natural these moves are now for Maxime. He plays really he played so far a great opening, I think. And in the game, rook on g1 played by Magnus. We have queen on c7. Also a natural move because nothing can attack this d6 weakness. It is a little bit weak pawn, of course, if the d file opens, but you have to support this attack even more. So that's why here Magnus played the move g3. As I said, g3 first, then h3, and then g4. So this is the main idea. If you try h3 in order to make your g4 work, it's not possible because you get this positional element, the blockade on the king side here with the move h4. So you see, with this h5 move, Maxime really stopped Magnus' advance here with because Magnus needs another move. He needs to play g3, then h3, and then g4. So that's why here g3 by Magnus, and now we have knight on e5. And this is not maybe the best move here by Maxime Vachier Lagrave. Again, I'm pointing out because of this pawn central control. I just wanted to again show you this possible center. It's sometimes very risky to play with your pawns in the center when you haven't castled so far, but I think because of this very nice activity of this bishop and also this knight with the pawn central control, you can play simply here something like d5 instead of this knight on e5. If you try here bishop on f4, we can try e5, and there are now really some tactical possibilities. It would be really complicated to explain all of them. Really, it's now a tactical battle after e5. If you try here e takes d5, then of course we can take. But now there is this problem about knight on f5. Opening the e file for the queen. If you try to trade off the queens, we have d6, which is very annoying. After bishop on d8, we have queen takes, knight takes, and now after rook on e1, we can even hide with our king. But we can also play knight on d7, and if you try here g takes f4, I think g6 is a very interesting move, because here after knight on d4 we can play bishop on b6. And this is now a very interesting game, because I think black should have proceeded like this. Here in this position, maybe even a better way is to take after this move d5 and the bishop on f4 and e5. After e takes d5, you don't have to take the bishop. You can also take the knight on d5. After knight takes on d, bishop takes on d5, and now rook on g2, preparing here this very dangerous attack on the e file. Again, I think we can simply take, and now after knight on f5 attacking the bishop, we can play knight on b6, which will be sort of a defensive setup, protecting also our bishop on d5, and also covering our e7 weakness. In the game, you can try maybe rook on e2, but now bishop on e6 closes the e file, and now knight on g7 with a check. Of course, king on f8 we can trade off, but now bishop on h3. Okay, white has his fun, but still you're continuing the game with one piece down. After f takes g3, here of course h takes g3, still you cannot protect this pawn. But I think after something like knight on c4, you have a comfortable game. Bishop on f6, also very dangerous. You cannot basically take with the rook because your c2 is hanging. So I said many tactical possibilities here in this position. If you try if you try e takes d5, not to play here the bishop on f4, then we have this again this very nice move, knight takes on d5, and now bishop on d5. This bishop is the best minor piece on the board, and it will be very dangerous for Magnus to battle against the bishop, because the threat is also queen on c4 if the position allows it. So far it's not possible, but also something like knight on c5, knight on a4, bringing this knight very actively into the game, and also bishop on f6 is a tactical possibility. And I think black has solved all the problems after move d5 here. But in the game, Maxime Vachier Lagrave played knight on e5. Nothing is lost here for black, but I think really this d5 would have been a better idea. Probably Maxime Vachier Lagrave played on this weakness on f3. Maybe try to deflect somehow this knight from the defense of f3, because here is the weakness in Magnus' position. This is a weak pawn on f3. And in the game, as I said, rook on g2, pardon me, played by Magnus Carlsen, which was, if you could just imagine now the position with queen on f2, that's why Magnus Carlsen played here the move queen on e1. It's not to defend with your queen on the second rank. That's why this rook lift is very nice, and we have now even the possibility to create a battery on the d file and maybe finally attack this d6 weakness, but still it's not possible. In the game now, finally, Maxime Vachier Lagrave he didn't resign, he castled. And it seems like a strange move. It seems like maybe he has made a mistake, because he has castled now into a weakened pawn structure in front of the king, because he has already played the move h5. But it's really hard to battle here with the move g4, because these knights are covering this square very good, and with the support of this pawn it's very hard now for Magnus to crack the position. And that's why probably also Maxime Vachier Lagrave played the move knight on e5 to have another controller of this g4 square. But I still think this d5 could have made some progress here, as said, in the game castling, and now we have h3. Finally, Magnus is preparing here the moves. You see how many moves he had to make with his pawns in order just to make this g4 work. And now finally d5 by Maxime Vachier Lagrave. It comes a little bit too late, although black will have the activity here. But now f4 played by Magnus, creating a counterattack. Knight on c4, we have e5, and now very nice move, knight takes on e3, getting rid of the bishop pair. Queen takes on e3, and now knight on e4, attacking the knight. Knight takes e4, we have d takes e4, and now rook on e2. And this pawn is basically lost. That's the problem here for black. But we have the bishop pair, and I've seen a similar position played by Garry Kasparov, where he simply gave up here the pawn on e4 and get his bishops active very, very dangerously here against the king, against the castle king. But now after rook on e2, here bishop on d5 was played by Maxime Vachier Lagrave, and again I think it was sort of an inaccuracy. You don't have to rely anymore on your pawn, it's not a problem, although you have improved the position of the bishop here on d5, and you still have the possibility to maybe create some dangerous attacks here with queen on c4. I think a better way is to proceed with rook on d8, because if you play bishop on g2, it's okay, you lose the pawn anyway, it's not the problem about the pawn anymore. We can play b4, simply opening position. A takes b, bishop takes on b4, and now bishop d5, bishop takes, queen takes, but now queen on b6, attacking really dangerously here. It's now we have also some tactical threats like bishop on c3 or bishop on a3, creating very, very dangerous attacks. And the problem for white here in this position is that white is simply too slow here on attack. He still has to play something like g4 just in order to open some files. Here Maxime Vachier Lagrave would have opened both of these files, and the problem is also that you have to fix your rook connection. Also, your rooks are loose, your rooks are not connected on the first rank, so there are also some back rank problems. And I think Maxime Vachier Lagrave would have found good tactical ideas here in this particular continuation. White would be forced even to escape with the king here from this b file. So that's why, as said, here after rook on e2, rook on d8 would have been maybe a better idea. Instead of that, Maxime Vachier Lagrave played bishop on d5. Still nothing lost for him, but this would have been, I think, a better continuation. In the game, bishop on g2 played by Carlsen, and now queen on c4, preparing this very annoying check on a2. Here knight on b3, of course, closing here the situation here on the light squares, and now bishop on c5. Here Magnus simply took bishop on c5, trying to simplify the position, because there were some dangerous threats, and probably Magnus thought, okay, when he takes the knight here, then I can really take here this pawn and go into a favorable endgame with one pawn up. But Maxime Vachier Lagrave found a very nice tactical idea. He played first queen takes on a2, and here king on c1 was played, and now rook from f to d8. There are now several options here for Magnus Carlsen, and basically only one is good. If you try something like c3, it could be a mistake, trying maybe to liberate the square for a king somehow. But now after queen on a1, we have the possibility to play king on c2, but now bishop on b3 would be very dangerous. If you take with the king, then it's very dangerous. We can take here this rook. If you take out here with the knight, it's also not so good, because here you get checkmated immediately on d1. So the other option is that you escape immediately somehow with the king on d2, but that's even worse. You have here bishop on c4, discovered attack, and if you try something like knight on d3, then again we can somehow open the e file, the d file, pardon me, simply taking. The rook has to move, and again d takes c3. If you try here in this position bishop on e4, it's again not so good, because here we have queen on a1, and after king on d2, bishop on e4. Now we have to cover, of course, with your knight, but now queen on b2 would be very dangerous. There are now several options also for white. You have to take, of course, the bishop, and now rook on c4 would be very dangerous. It's not good to take here immediately with the rook. It seems like a good move, but now we can escape. That's not the point. First, rook on c4 would be a better idea. After queen on f3, maybe queen on c3, and I think again this would be sort of a perpetual check game, and here even there's also the possibility maybe to do some tactical shots here on d3, but this is really too complicated here to find all of these lines here. That's why Magnus Carlsen here in this particular position finds a very nice move, a nice defensive move. He played the move c4, and now there is this problem. If you take, of course, with the bishop, then we can simplify the position again and trade off this rook. So that's not what you want to do in an attacking position, and this move is really cool, cool defensive move by Magnus, because now black is forced to take with the b pawn, and he closes the c file. We have now a protector. A funny thing is that our best protector is our opponent's piece, our opponent's pawn here, and in the game rook on d2 played by Magnus Carlsen, and this is really a strange move by Magnus. I thought that when I watched the game, when I watched some analysis, that he could have found maybe a better move, because this rook on d2 closes again sort of an escape route for the king. You have at least the possibility to escape somehow with the king on d2, king on e1, king on f2, and similar ideas. And maybe the best move is here to try knight on a4, at least somehow. Bishop on c6 is very dangerous. If you try here to take, then I think it's not a good position, because there are some tactical threats again here with queen on a1. So if you try rook on d8 here after trades of rooks, if you escape with your knight on c3, then queen on a1, and the problem is that you cannot go again on c2. That would be very good if you can escape, but now bishop on a4 would be very dangerous. You have to take with your knight, and then you get queen on d1 checkmate. So that's why in this particular position you have to cover with knight on b1. It is a must move, sort of, and here rook on d3, but now queen on g1. And maybe Magnus could have escaped here somehow with one piece up, but this is really too tactical. I think you cannot calculate all of that. The Stockfish engine would have to go working through the whole day, and now after something like c3, which is the most natural way to continue here, we have queen on e1, sort of a defensive resource, after bishop on d5, again simply taking, but now bishop on a2 would be sort of an attack, but now rook on b2 saves the thing for a while. But there is now a great move that black can play in order to make a draw here, f5, supporting the e4 pawn, very important. After king on c2, now we can take, queen takes, and now queen takes on a3. In the next move we can even take out this pawn. Still white is the piece up, but still this game is very complicated. There are too many tactical threats, so that's why here in this position rook from as I said, rook on d2 was played, and now queen on a1. Here we have king on c2, and now both players made some perpetual moves, and they both agreed to a draw. Great opening preparation, I think, by Maxime Vachier Lagrave. As said, he should have get this pawn rolling before with this move d5. I think he could have a better continuation in this particular line. He played also a very aggressive attack with even a piece sacrifice, but Magnus found this very nice move c4, close the position, and the game went into a draw. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this game. We'll follow this Grand Chess Tour finals even more. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.